Hello everyone, welcome to another session on Python for data science. So today we'll discuss about data structures in Python. So this session is mainly to discuss the basic data structures which are available in Python. So these data structures are the basic ones. So we'll go in detail the various built-in data structures which are available in Python, plus additional data structures which are available in Python from other libraries. Right? So first, basically, we'll just start off with the basic definition. Okay, of what is a data structure? Right. So we just basically start off. We'll just start off with what is a data structure. Just to put it in a more simple language, a data structure is nothing but a collection. Right? Collection of what? Collection of data values, the relationship among them, as well as the collection of what functions or what operations which can be applied to the data, right? So it's in to put it in a even more simplistic language, simplistic words. It's nothing but a collection. It's a collection of data, collection of what is the relationship among whatever values of data present, plus what operations or what functions which can be applied to them. So that is basically what is a data structure. So coming to the different built-in data structures available in Python, you have the built-in data structures called list. There's one data structure called list. There's one more which is called as tuple. There's one which is called as dictionary, and we have finally something which is called as sets. Right? So these are the four standard ones. In the next session, we'll go on. We'll look at other data structures which can be used in Python as well. Right? So let's begin with list. Right. So list again as so one good thing about Python is whatever names or whatever variable names or whatever names you look at. So it's basically you can understand its functionality by its name only. Right. So when I say list, the first thing which comes to your mind is a normal English meaning of a list. Right? A list is nothing but a collection of objects. In general, it's nothing but a collection. Right. So this is what list is also in Python is also is. Right? So what basically a list is a data structure which is which is ordered, right? And it is mutable as well. Coming to the terms, what is ordered and what is mutable? It's nothing but say let me create a new list. All right. And how do you denote list? List is in generally denoted by two square brackets. So inside list, what can you store is you can store objects of any data type. You can even store a list inside the list, right? So this is what a list. In list, you denote by two square brackets. Let me just create a simple list with say hello world. Then I store few numbers in them as well. Now, let me just print my list. So this is what is a sample my list. Now, whenever I call the list multiple times, I get the same order in which the original list was created. So this is what is meant by ordered. Okay. Now, what do I mean by mutable? Mutable is nothing but so whatever value you store, it can be replaced. Just to give you an example, say this is a string. Okay. So you cannot replace the values of a string. Maybe you can replace the whole string. So this we had seen in the previous video. Right? When you just run it, you end up getting does not support it. So now, what do I mean by coming to a list? Right? So again, just reconfirming, Python counting in Python always starts from 0. I think for people who are new to Python, this might be a bit of an issue, at least in the beginning. But later on, I'm sure that this would you guys would easily pick it up. Coming to this now, my list of 0. So let's just print out what is my list of 0. It's nothing but hello. Now, we can easily replace this with, say, I don't know, say new hello. We'll print out my list as well. Right now, you see the change. Previously, it was only hello. Now it's hello, new hello. So this is what is meant by mutable. It coming to so this is how you create a list. You create a list. You put a square bracket. You put a square bracket. So you can easily store numbers, any sort of numbers. You can easily store strings. You can as well as store list as well. Okay. So now you know what is list. It's basically a data structure in Python, which is ordered and mutable. You know what is list. You know how to create a list. You know how lists are represented. So we'll look at few operators. We will look at few operators which you can do in lists. I think one of the most common use cases, right? I think you'll be coming across this as you code more and more. One of the most common use cases is checking if a particular element is available in this list. Right? Again, we'll stick with the same list, my underscore list. So basically what we'll do is we'll basically check if 2 in my underscore list. So this is where that knowledge of identity and membership operators, this is where the knowledge of operators comes in very handy. Now you can see 2 is true now when I say my underscore list. So 3 is also true now when you actually replace 3 with maybe a 4 or 5, you generally get a false. So this is what in is. Now you can easily replace this with not in as well. Right? Not in is like the negation of that. Now when I say 4, we can edit it here only. 4 not in my list. It should give you true because it's not. So you're doing a not operator over there. So the not operator basically takes care of that. Now one more is how do you add to list? So you say you have 1, 2, 3 as your list. Then you have one more second list with 4, 5. Then hello. Now consider a case wherein you need to add to list. I think that's pretty straightforward, right? You just do 1, 2, 3, 4. So it just come. It's just your normal addition. Now what would happen? If you do a minus? It is not working. Similarly, when you do a subtraction, when you do a multiplication as well, it's not work. I think all of these also the only thing which you can do is you can just generally add two lists together. If you actually want to subtract two lists or multiply individual elements of lists, there are other ways of doing that. Okay. Now say you just do 1, 2, 3 A is equal to B5 hello. So you get that. Now you can there's actually one more variant of this. So let's look at that as well. So basically what is this variant is, say you can easily combine list inside a list. So hello, so this is a list inside a list. So the method is the same. Okay, now you need to close it. So it will throw an error. You just do A plus B. Actually, you get a list inside the list. The original, this thing is maintained. So the original sort of a list you have, it does not get broken down. Okay, the original, this thing is still maintained. So moving on. So what next we'll do is maybe we'll look at what are the built-in methods in list. Right? So one more thing in Python. Is everything is basically an object. So what is an object? What are classes and all of that? Basically, we'll discuss that maybe a bit later. So we'll have a separate detailed discussion, detailed video on object-oriented programming. But for now, what basically is an object is nothing but a collection of methods and attributes, methods and variables. And that definition should be good enough. So when you just do a type of a, right, you get a list. Now, since everything in Python is an object, okay, everything in Python is an object, we would want to know what are the built-in methods, okay? Built-in methods which are available in list. So what is the advantage of knowing about built-in methods is it will give you a list of standard methods which you can actually use in whenever for your normal operations. So we'll have a look at that. So the actual command to get to know all of that is something called dir of a. What basically dir tells you is it tells you all the methods as well as all the attributes available for this particular class or for this particular object. Okay, so in this particular case, you have all of these. These are called dunder methods. Double underscore. It's usually called as dunder in Python. Not to worry about that much. Not to worry much about that now. It will be covered in detail in the follow-up further on sessions. But for now, our focus is mainly on these methods. Okay, what are these? What are methods? Methods are basically functions inside the class. Again, functions are not covered yet, but basically functions, one very easy way of remembering functions is it basically does a set of things. Okay, it basically carries out a set of things. So you basically have an input, right? You have a set of arguments as input, and it basically performs some operation, gives you an output. Again, you can specify your input as well as you can specify what sort of output do you need. Do you need a single value output? Do you need a function as an output? So it's a whole lot of this thing. So we'll be again discussing this in detail. But for now, what you should know about functions is, so functions are what basically functions nothing but you're giving it a bunch of inputs. It basically carries out certain set of operations, certain set of processes, and it will basically give you an output. So you have control over the input as well as output. You can basically decide what sort of input do you need as well as what sort of output do you need as well. Okay, so for now what we'll basically do is we'll look into each one of these methods. Okay. We'll basically look into each one of these methods and see what is the input and as well as what is the output. Okay. So again, why is it important to know the built-in functions is it'll give you a direct idea. You can directly use this. Okay, you can directly use these built-in functions to easily carry out various operations. So yeah, we'll start off with append. Uh, again, you don't get confused with methods and functions. Methods is basically functions which are written inside a class. Okay, so functions is basically what we just discussed, right? You have input, it performs a set of steps, certain specific processes, it gives you an output. So that is what is basically a function. So we'll just start off with append. What basically appends is basically it adds its argument. Okay? So you just give a list, right? So you have a list and you're supposed to append maybe a list or maybe a value to it. Append, it's nothing but it adds whatever value you give at the end of the list. So basically whatever argument you give it, right? Whatever argument you pass, it basically adds to the input list. I think let me just walk you through to an example. I think things should get clearer after that. So this is my initial list. So what I'm doing is my list. So I'm passing an input. So say assume my input is hello world, right? So my list. So since it's a method. How do you access methods in Python is you just do a dot. I think it's very easy to understand it as well, right? So see, append is basically inside, it's basically a method in a list object, right? Append is basically a method in a list object. So dot is an easier way of accessing it. Okay, now you have added this. Now let me just call out my underscore list, right? You got hello world. Now it does not do anything special. What do I mean by that is, let me just copy this and put it in a new cell. Now basically what will I do over here is I just do a hello world, right? So it's, I think in one easier way of remembering append is what it basically does is similar to a plus, whatever we just saw above, right? Whatever plus thing. So this is very similar to that. Okay, so append, it just basically appends whatever argument value you give to the end of the list. Okay, that is what append is. So next this thing which I think next method which we'll explore is something which is called as extend. Okay, so what basically is an extend? Again, we'll create a very simple list. So I think let me just run an example. Maybe after I run this example, maybe things would get clearer. Okay. So this is my list. It's again a sample list which I just created. Now I'm just creating again. I am just creating one more list. Right. It's created. Now when I do my list dot extend sample, so I've run this as well. Now we can easily print my list as well. I think we can just do this over here only. So you just type my underscore list. Right. Now maybe if this is still not clear, we can have one more example over here. Now instead of hello world, we can easily have just the world, just a single output. So this is fine. One more example. Okay, now you have hello world. You have basically 1, 2, 3. Then you have a list inside a list, right? Right. So this is what basically the output is. So what it basically does is it basically breaks up. It basically iterates over its argument, adding each element to the list, and it's extending the list. Okay, so it's very similar to remember as it just basically takes the argument. Argument in this case is a list. It basically picks up each argument and adds it back to the list. Okay, so this is what extend does. Next, the next built-in method is something which is called as clear. And see again, it's clear. It just clears out the list. So in any case, you just want to clear it out, clear this list out. Right? So you can just do my list dot clear. It clears this thing out. Right. So it's not printed. So we'll print the list. Right. You end up with an empty list. Right. So moving on to the next built-in method, it's something which is called as insert. Again, this is I'm guessing that this should be easier to understand, right? Easier to figure it out. So your insert. So insert, you're basically inserting something, right? You're inserting something into a list. So what basically inserts is one, you're inserting at a particular position. Okay. Until now, whatever you've read at, you've looked at extend, you've looked at append, you looked at the plus, right? Whatever you looked at here, the one this thing is you do not have a particular position. You're just appending at the end of the list. Now, basically, what we want is we basically say assume we have a use case where we want to append a particular value, at a particular position. That is what insert would help you in. Just to give an example, say this is my underscore list, right? So you have my underscore list. So you have basically hello world, again a very simple list. So in this list, say suppose I want to insert at the first position. I want to insert another random example, right? So now whenever I just print it out, it's basically inserted at the beginning of the list. Now say I want to insert something at the second position, right? At the second index. So I want to insert something at the second index. Second is nothing but one. So again, just a random example. Now you just again print out the list just to check what is the output, right? So you are basically inserting, when I say one, it's a 0, 1, a 2, 3. So that's how the indexing in Python is. Okay, now this is insert, right? So this insert is very straightforward, right? So you just directly insert at a particular. It's very similar to extend. The only difference is you are inserting at a particular position, at a particular index. That's what insert does. Next one is remove. So again, remove is very similar to clear. Again, the only difference is clear empties out the entire list. What remove does is it only removes a particular this thing only. So it does not empty out the entire. So it does not empty out the entire entire list. So let's look at the output. So okay, so it's this thing was forgotten. So it removes only 1, 2, 3. So you need to specify the value over here, remove. So that's what basically remove does. So the next one is something just called as pop. Okay, the next built-in method, which is something which is called as pop. Okay, so what basically what basically pop does is, I think, again, from the name itself, it just pops out. So whatever value you just input, basically pops out that value. So you have 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you do my underscore list dot pop, again, pop is you're supposed to give it an index. Okay, so you say you give a pop of 2, then so it just pops out the value, right? It just pops out the value. That's what pop is. And you can just further, just for confirmation, you can see, so it just removes that value. So that is what pop does for you. Again, next, one more important method is something which is called a sort, right? So up until now, what we have seen is, we have seen how to add two lists together, how to join two lists, how to append lists, how to extend lists, how to pop a list, how to insert elements at a specific index in a list, and now basically look at how do you sort a list. Again, sorting a list is nothing but putting it in order, either in ascending or descending, or in any particular order. All right. Now this is again my list, and one more shortcut again in Python is just press tab. It will give you the list of all available options. Tab is give you a list of all available methods. So when you do my list dot sort, so you just do a my underscore list, and so it's basically sorted in ascending order. Now consider a case wherein you have a list inside the list. So whenever you try to sort in that manner, so whenever you list, it immediately throws an error. So basically what you have to do is, you need to basically again flatten out the list into a single list. No nested list over here for sorting. Input is always a single list. So this is sort. Now say suppose you want to sort it in the descending order. You basically have a method for that as well. So what basically this does is, it basically sorts the list in the descending order. The above one was basically in the ascending order. Now it basically sorts in the descending order. Okay. The next method is something which is called as index. Index is nothing but you give it a particular value. Again, let us look at the same list. Now say you want to get what is the location, what is the number of a particular value. Say I give it 324. So what index will give me is, it will give me that number. Say this is a list of length 4. Right? 1, it basically means 324 is basically in its second position. That's what this thing does. Okay, so my list dot index of 9. Okay, I think the syntax is a bit invalid. So so it's 2, so it's nothing on the third position. Right? The next and one more useful built-in method is something which is called as count. Count basically counts. The name itself is count, but it counts the number of times the object is present in a list. Okay. So we can create a new list, since in the above case everything is of a single count. So I'm guessing it would not be of much help. So yeah, this is list. This is again a simple list. Now consider a case where we count the number of times a particular value is, right? In this my list dot count is basically count of 2. So in this what we got is, in this what count method. So basically what count method does is, it basically counts the number of times a particular object, whatever be the argument, it basically counts the number of times it appears. There's actually one more useful function, which is nothing but len. So what basically len gives you is, len gives you the number of elements in the list. So that is a bit different than count. In count, you're looking at only at a particular element. Right? Length is more like a general a general counting this thing. It will give you the length of the whole list. Okay? So this is what list is. So basically, just to give a brief recap, just to give a brief summary, we discussed what is list, different operations in list, different common operations in list, and we looked at different built-in methods available in list with examples. Okay, guys, thank you. We'll again meet in the next session. Thanks, guys.